Now I'm just trying to figure out what his leg armor looks like and his boots. I'm not really quite sure what I'm doing yet, so I'm just kind of throwing something down. By now you've probably noticed that that's pretty much how I paint everything. I don't really have an idea of what I'm doing beforehand. I just kind of start painting. I think I'm going to use this half circular motif that I used in his belt and headdress for his leg armor. It's always better to repeat certain elements throughout your character design instead of having everything look completely different. A lot of people wonder what resolution I paint in, and I always paint in 300 dpi just because I never know if this is going to be used for marketing. Sometimes they put this on a box cover or in a magazine or inside um, a game guide. It's always good to just be prepared. The only problem is sometimes my files get pretty big and it can take a few seconds for Photoshop to flip my images or save. It also helps the modelers so that they can zoom in and see all the little details. Right now I'm trying out some different designs on his legs. Maybe I can put in that little snake design that I used on his necklace earlier. I don't really like how it turned out though, so I'm just going to start over. I keep trying to add in some kind of scorpion design on him, but they just never seem to really turn out. Another thing that people always wonder about is how heavily art directed are these things and how much of it is actually my own design and creation. At Mythic, there actually isn't that much art direction in terms of what something should look like specifically. We have a lot of freedom to actually put down what we want. Usually we have some kind of style guide that we work from, and we reference the army books and the miniatures a lot. So there's already an established look that we just kind of have to follow. Typically we have dailies once a day with our art director so that he can kind of see what we're working on and give us any feedback. Usually around the sketch phase is when I turn something in to get some feedback, and after that I go into the color and the final. One thing that concept artists really have to get used to and accept is that you're probably going to have to change your concepts a lot, and sometimes you're going to have to redo them completely several times. And I think people just don't really realize that when they're going into the industry. You also have to realize that this isn't really your art anymore. Several people are going to be touching this. I mean, there's going to be other concept artists that may work on it some. There's going to be modelers making it, animators. So, I mean, in the end, it's not really your artwork anymore, it's the company's. Creating video games is such a collaborative process that you can't really point to one person and say, oh, this guy did this. And ultimately, in the end, people aren't even going to be seeing my artwork. They're going to be seeing the model that's in the game. The only time people really see my actual art is on the internet or if it's used for some kind of marketing. So far, I've been pretty lucky in terms of not having to redo my concepts a lot. Usually, I seem to have a pretty good idea of what the art director wants, so I don't have to make very many big changes. Most of the time when I have to make major changes, it's because I'm working on some kind of architecture piece instead of character design. I think it's just because architecture in Warhammer hasn't really been fleshed out very much in the past 25 years. Lately I've started using SketchUp for interiors and exteriors just because it's a lot faster to start out with the building in 3D and then take it into Photoshop and paint on top of it. That way I don't have to worry about setting up all my perspective lines and trying to get everything to look correct. Perspective is actually one of my weakest points. I guess I didn't really pay that much attention in school or something. I went back and added some red into his shoulders just so that I can try and get some red, blue, and gold into each of the major areas of his armor. Again, I'm repeating some shapes from his bracers and his headdress.